Hello and welcome. My name is Jackie Hawk, and this is Nami Nation by Kai's Korner Productions. You can find me at Quillful Writer on social media, and I'm always happy to chat about video games. Our first bit of news is a little controversial, with Elon Musk saying he's going to use an XAI startup to develop games. His goal here was to create an anti-woke bubble for people who don't want pronouns in games. Full formal names only, I suppose. Political stances aside, the main issue here is that he wants to use his XAI startup to develop these games, and based on the hasty development and incomplete training for Grok, he doesn't have the work ethic to do a good job with this. Generative AI was mostly preferred by casual audiences in a recent study about generated versus human poetry, at least when people didn't know it was made by a computer. That said, that preference has more to do with the blandification that AI only exacerbates. With the basic principles of human psychology, it's understandable that people would like what they recognize and what's easy to understand. This is why tropes and archetypes are so effective in storytelling, and the poetry study backs that up in its own way. Casual poetry readers generally like things that are accessible, and AI-generated poetry conveys its concepts with straightforward and simple wording. It's through this lens that they tend to interpret AI-written poetry as human poetry because they simply like it more. Because generative AI simplifies the content it creates and makes it easily comprehensible, it has less to offer than more challenging content that requires perception and understanding on the part of the player or reader. And that's what these programs are trained to do. The content they're given may or may not be ethically sourced, but however they're trained, what an AI does is average out everything that it's been given. It strips away the personality of content and makes it less thought-provoking when you consume it. For some, this is the ideal. For others, this is a dystopian nightmare. Most likely, people at large will fall somewhere between those two extremes, and reviews will come back as meh over time. Especially as generative AI programs would cannibalize content from each other in this scenario, it would only erode their continuous training down the line. At the end of the day, this could just be a I'm going to buy Twitter situation where Musk will attempt to back out of his lofty claims later on. We simply don't know what could happen until he makes a decision and actually stands by it. Not to mention, with generative AI businesses like OpenAI being sued by several media companies, or ending up in court for privacy policy violations, it's too hard to say how this could go. While we're talking about new games to come, the Phantom video game is available for pre-order. This is a beat-em-up arcade-style game set to release in 2025. It leans into its comic book origins with small panels that show up on screen and other details in the gameplay. The Phantom also taps into that 80s arcade feeling with a side-scrolling format and a retro art style by Anthony Spey, who has worked extensively on the Phantom comics. Everything is hand-drawn and painted for perfect nostalgia. The game's storyline is completely original, being made by Art of Play and approved by King Features, which publishes the comics. The digital version of the game is available on more consoles, but PS5 and Switch players can get a physical copy. Development on this game started in 2023, so the pre-order window is fairly timely. Different bundles offer extras like an art book, soundtrack, poster, and more for the higher tiers. And speaking of going above and beyond, a Borderlands fan had his dream fulfilled by the CEO of Gearbox. The story starts off tragic with Caleb McAlpine, a dedicated fan of the Borderlands series in his late 30s. In the summer, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer and was given less than 2 years to live, even with medication. He turned to the internet to see if anyone could help him get in touch with Gearbox to play Borderlands 4 early. The newest game installment is supposed to be released in 2025, so the internet turned out in force. Enough people interacted and boosted his post until the Gearbox CEO, Randy Pitchford, made a post saying he was emailing McAlpine to make it happen. Ultimately, Gearbox paid for McAlpine and a friend to fly first class to tour the studio, meet some of the dev team for the franchise, and talk to Pitchford in person. McAlpine and his friend played what was available for Borderlands 4 so far, and while it wasn't the full game, McAlpine made a post explaining how incredible it was to get the sneak peek, and Pitchford made a post of his own thanking the internet for the signal boost to help McAlpine play the upcoming game in a series he's clearly loved. With tentative connections between happiness and health, in addition to the proper medications of course, Pitchford's hopes that McAlpine will still be here for the game's official release could just pan out. Metroid Prime 4 is also set to release in 2025, with fans waiting eagerly to see it hit the shelves. Many are hopeful for an early release in the year, But until then, the Trilogy Artbook is available for pre-order and has a set release date for the end of July in 2025. The game itself can only be wishlisted for now, and the Nintendo website says it will be on the Switch, with no word about the successor to that system just yet. Considering the Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever it will end up being titled, is backwards compatible, it should still work with this game. The artbook has been a glimmer of hope for fans who simply cannot wait for this game to come out, especially now that it's currently on sale at Amazon. Covering 20 plus years of Metroid Prime history, it shares exclusive insights and interviews, featuring a foreword by the Metroid Prime producer, and of course there are plenty of sketches and concept art from the series as well. Samus is shown on the cover with a metallic foil etching that really adds to the sci-fi style of this collector's book, and looks very much like her iconic suit, even if it can't capture all of the colors usually present. My own interactions with the Metroid series have been limited to Super Smash games with Samus and levels from her universe, but even I'm tempted to get this art book, it is just that beautiful. Konami is also putting its best foot forward in trying to draw a new generation of Metal Gear Solid fans. The original Metal Gear game was released in 1998, when I was in elementary school. It makes sense that Konami will be releasing a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater to reintroduce younger gamers to this classic franchise. Without remakes, remasters, or ported games, there are 17 total Metal Gear titles. Only 17 of these games have ended up being canon, since the rest are spin-offs or what-ifs based on the main universe. Because Snake Eater is chronologically first in Snake's storyline, it's an excellent place to start off new players. It has all the grit and heavy-hitting events that existing fans will expect, setting the tone for people just getting involved in Metal Gear. Speculation about where the series will go from here is still alive and well, debating if the next installment will be a new game or another remaster. There's simply no telling yet. All we know is that Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is set to release in 2025 for PCs, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. With a Metal Gear movie in the works since 2006, and plenty of books already out there, a new game could breathe life into this franchise in more ways than one. Stay up to date with gaming news by subscribing to our podcast, Nami Nation, available on several platforms, and see more entertainment content when you check out the KKP YouTube channel. As always, it's been wonderful, and I'll see you next time.